Hi, everyone. This is going to be exciting. It's good to be in a small group, and sometimes we're able to share stories. I'm a storyteller. I love telling stories. I'm from Africa. You can hear that in my accent. Um, and I wear it proudly. And, we tell stories. Stories the only way we get to know ourselves. Our names are stories. My name is Kehinde, and it's stories. It's a story of two kids born the same day, and the parent decided to say, we have a twins, we have twins children. So what do we do? One of them has to be the senior, one of them has to be the junior. So both of them cannot be the same. Somebody has to be the leader. So my name actually means the person who comes last is the first. So Cain Day means the child who comes last among the twins is actually the senior because he's the one who sent the first one to go and check what's going on, and then he or she arrives after. So some kind of royalty to my name. All right, so I will try to share my screen, and we're gonna have some fun. I do not like teaching. I like to have conversations. So I will be showing you a few tools that we would use to have conversation today. All right. So I call this presentation "What's Your Story?" And that's very simple because many times we go to meetings or we try to introduce our business. I created one or two businesses myself, and I appreciate the duty and the task of creating and running business. That's why I think what you're all doing, it's not small at all. When people say small businesses or businesses, there's nothing small about small businesses. And so, but the most important thing is oftentimes people ask us, so what do you do? And that usually is a point where we go and say all sort of stuff just to make the point. So I've always called my presentation, "What's your story?" Very simple, what's your story? And so I would want us to go through this together to see how do we tell stories that really matter. So the upshot, at the end of today, I want us to know the difference between a share of mind and a share of wallet. A share of mind and a share of wallet. If there's nothing that we remember out of today, I want us to remember that. So a brand wants to connect, that is a share of mind. A brand wants to sell, that's a share of wallet. The questions all the time, and I've been at various boardroom, whether it's the banking system when I was with the Citi Bank or when I was with Coca-Cola, is usually the question is, how much do we sell? How much are we selling? And a lot of time we always ask the marketing, the campaign, the advertising, what was it effective? So there's always been this conversation about the difference between selling and connecting. People might know your brand and they may not be buying it. People might be buying your brand and they may not really care about it. So that is not good. So we always say in marketing, we say the answer is a share of mind. A share of mind is much better than share of wallet. And I will tell you the reason why. It's always good to be on people's mind because when you're on my mind, you don't need to beg for my money because I think about you. I know about you. I know of you. And so it's very important to remember the difference between these two, share of mind and share of wallet. So, and we'll come back to that soon. So let's look at some of the top 5 brands in the world from 2019. I don't know if COVID will allow us to track the 2020 brands based on all the dynamics that happened. So some consultancy firm, they rank the world's biggest companies using the brand strengths, how the brands want to improve in the future, what values they had to the company, looking at the brand itself, what are the biggest brand. This is something we always look forward to every year. And from Interbrand. And so let's look at it. I want to see if you know it actually. So go to slido.com, use your phone, or you can just scan the barcode here and join me in this conversation. Go to that space. If you're on the phone, you don't need to register. You don't need to do anything. If it asks you for number, just key in 33217 into that, and let's get started. I want to give you a little quiz. I want to be sure that you know the brands that are taking all our money and all our money. So the result is Apple, of course. Of all these Of all these brands, Apple has been the leading brand for 2019. There's so many reasons for that, but if you look at it again, the share of market, the share of wallet, and the share of mind. The question I've always asked in meetings is, most companies use Windows. You see Windows everywhere, government and all of that. How come Apple is leading the pack? And that's the power of storytelling. So the number 5 brand is Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola is number 5. And the question you keep asking is, after all these years, how come Coca-Cola is still at number 5? People believe that you shouldn't take a lot of sugar. People believe that you shouldn't take Coca-Cola. A lot of people think so. But Coca-Cola is still winning because of the share of mind that they have. Number 4 is Microsoft. We know that that's possible. That's really nice. Number 3 is Amazon. Amazon has been able to shoot themselves up to number 3 of the brand list. And then number 2 is Google. And number 1 is Apple. So let's focus on these two. Let's look at these two guys here, Apple and Windows. Again, it's always been intriguing to look at these two guys. They tend to be always competing with themselves. Some of you have seen some of their commercials, I'm sure. Let's play one of these commercials.
Okay, first, glorious anniversary. More history, a garden of pure ideology, where each one secure from the pests of a contradictory roots. What are we on earth? We are one people, one will, one resolve, one cause. Hold themselves together, and we shall prevail.
On January 24th, Apple Computer will introduce Macintosh. And you'll see why 1984 won't be like 1984.
Right. So before we get out of that commercial, I don't know if anybody can tell me what they saw there. Looking at that commercial, that was 1984. That was how Apple introduced Macintosh. And that commercial, according to most of us in advertising, is one of the most studied piece of commercial in the world. Like those of us that went to advertising school, you cannot graduate without looking at that commercial. That commercial was how Apple introduced Macintosh in 1984. And a lot of people were asking, why didn't they introduce the features of the product? Like they were introducing a new product. And for most of us who are business owners and running product, we're selling products and services. Most of the time, what we want to tell when we're telling a product story is to tell people to say, this is the color of my product. This is the, this is the grammage, this is how beautiful it is, all of that. This is usually the way people tell story for their product. But Macintosh didn't do that. They created a cultural war. They talk about the big brother. They talk about how 1984 will not be like 1984. They changed the conversation. And that singular thing kind of slingshot them into a place today that they are leading the pack of brands. And because if you talk to Steve Jobs will always tell you, it's not just about some cute advertising. It's about you being intentional in the messaging that you send out there. It's about the story. The story, what is this brand all about? So we're going to break that down. But before we break it down, I want us to go shopping on Amazon. Let's look at Amazon. Let's look at a few brands. So when I put this together in June, because Andy and myself were supposed to do this in June, I went shopping on Amazon to look at a few top brands. Amazon always puts, top trending products, on top from small businesses. So these are some small businesses that were top that week. I don't know them. I just picked them randomly because they were number 1 and number 2. I don't know if any of us can see this. This is a drooling bibs for kids, and you can read the story, the way they describe the story. Are you upset by your baby's drooling? Why it's teething? And they describe the product. They describe what the product can do for you. Now this is another one. It's an exciting game called Sequence. And they put that up there, they explain all of that. Between these two products, the question is, which of them actually has a story to tell? Which of them is just selling their product? Could this be one of your products yourself? Could it be how you've been selling your product? Maybe on Amazon. Which of these products is really telling a story? I do not know. Does anybody think any of them is telling some story?
This is a coast. I would say the drooling teether bibs are telling a story because they kind of relate to parents on an emotional level.
Right. I totally agree. I totally agree. Yeah. And I picked that myself. Does anybody have any other opinion on this, on these two brands from Amazon? I don't know these brands. I just picked them up just before the class because they were trending.
I mean, I think that the sequence one, it says what it is, fun, challenging, exciting, but not why in any capacity. You're just supposed to take their word for it.
That's right. I will come back to this. There's something I want us to look at there. I will come back to this. There is this popular brand on Amazon. Of course, most of us know about Duluth. Many of us know about this underwear for men, I'm sure, also for women. How many of us remember the story they have always told, even on TV? It's always been the same thing. You know, yeah, they've always talked about the story of, you know, hardworking men that need to wear their underwear because the underwear is convenient for such men. And they've stuck to that story over the years. Over the years, it's the same story they have been telling for years. You know, I like it because it gives them a market that they're not just selling underwear. They're selling underwear for men who actually they do a lot of hard stuff. You know, and also to women, but they've always been focusing on men for most of the time. This is also another product for bra for women. Can you look at this bra story and tell me, you know, does it really do anything? What is it cohesive? There's storytelling here. Again, I pick all of this from Amazon. It is very busy. It's a lot going on, but there is a story in there. We can see the story in there. It's just that it's not very clear, like Duluth's story. Even Duluth is not also very clear.
Yeah, it seems like, I mean, you know, the underwear, the Hanes one is promoting some sense of like fun, you know, like people are doing tricks in their underwear. It's like easy to move around and it's a fun time to be wearing this.
Right. They talked about the fall in love with a bra that shapes to fit you. And, you know, they talk about comfortable clothing. They talk about fit. So in this story alone, there's fitting, there's comfortability, and they talk about they've been around since 1901. So there is a lot of story going on in just that small piece of advert. And this is usually the problem, you know, that we have with CEOs. And I know I'm speaking to most of you who are the owners of your businesses. A lot of time, you want to tell a lot of story at the same time. You want people to know you've been around in Baltimore for years. You also want to let people know that you're the best underwear that you fit. You want people to know that you're easy to wear. People do not have a lot of time. We need to decide, do we want the share of the wallet or do we want the share of mind? How do we go about it? Which one do we want to go for? So I'll give you a few formula that are, you know, that we use in marketing, in storytelling especially. So let's map this out. So let's start from here. I don't know how many of us have seen this diagram before. It is very popular. If you have not, I'm going to pass this on to David. It's very important if you are building your business or building your product to know about how people get to be aware to how they make consideration about your product or your business. So it usually starts from the left. People, you want to get people's attention. And there are two things that can happen. They're either unaware or they're aware. A lot of time people are unaware of your products, and that's where we start from. Your desire is to move them to being aware, I'm sure. And then once they're aware, the second level is that can they process what you mean? Can they process you? Can they separate you from competition? Can they determine what your story is? Or is what you are saying very foggy? You know, like we just look at Hans, a lot of stuff they were saying, but it's a lot foggy there. It's a lot of stuff going on. So you need to decide from attention, are people aware? Then the second stage, are people processing who you are? Can they process it? Can they say, or are you foggy? Are you all over the place? You know, you're offering so much. Nobody can say, this is who you are. This is what's your story. And then the last stage is where the share of mind happen. This is where you get loyalty. So people can either reject your product or your service, or they can hold on to it and say, I'm still processing this. I do not really understand why this is a better cereal than the Trader Joe's cereal. I still don't understand why this is a better service than the other service provided by the other company. So they hold on. They want to look for more reason, you know, to go on. It's just like when we vote, we hold on to see whether the candidate is going to convince us a little more. And then the last stage, which is the gold mine, is consideration. This is our target. You want to be in people's consideration. Consideration means I know your product. I'm aware of your product or your service. I have processed it. I know what your story is. I know your story. I know what you stand for. And I have looked at every other thing in the market. You're in my consideration space. I can consider you when I'm thinking about my cereal. I consider you without thinking about it. I just say, oh, I'm going to get that. So we need to always remember, where are we in the stages of our marketing? A lot of time we're in the attention stage, or we're in the processing stage, or we're in the consideration stage. We have to choose where we are, and then we decide the kind of story we want to tell. So where is your brand at the moment? So just scan that. If you can scan that, and you can pick one of these. I want to see who is in the room, and I want to see if we know where your brand is at the moment. All right, so there are three answers in the room. Some people say people are being, it's as a stage of awareness. Some say that, you know, it's foggy right now. People are still trying to figure us out, you know, and that's where you need story. That's where you need to tell story to put you in the center. Some people say their brand is already processed. People know what they stand for. Congratulations, whoever that is. So, and that is why I introduced to you the tool for storytelling, which is 12 by 34. This is a tool that I introduce to a few of my students and to my clients when they want to create that story that can make people process their brand. Because when people are processing your brand, they want to know what you stand for. And the way to tell them what you stand for is to tell a story. It is your intentional storytelling tool for businesses that want to have a share of mind. It's intentional. You decide you want to use this tool because you want to create a story that really means something to what you stand for. So let's get started. I thought you would need 5 cardboards and 1 black Sharpie, but I don't know. I didn't send that to Andy, and because I thought we would use the cloud. Unfortunately, a lot of us are saying we cannot access Slido, so that's kind of disappointing to me. But yeah, I hope we can access this because most of what we're doing is going to be in the cloud. So yeah, so we're going to get started. The first storyboard. So if you look at this, 12 by 34. So you're going to need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 storyboards. So the first storyboard you need is what I call your customer's universe. That's the storyboard number 1. You want to know the universe of your customer. You want to know where they reside, their mood, where they are right now, where your product is being launched. Where are they? So let's look, for instance, I just picked this up. I said, okay, if I'm selling to this millennial, the mood board right now for them is they're brilliant, they're racial justice conscious, and they are very loud. They are not going to be silenced. So all of this is based on me picking up a few data here and there and looking at top headlines. It is always good to start your creativity from mood board. If you're a CEO of a company, don't get started with doing marketing without doing mood board. Mood board allows you to filter all the things about your consumer into some kind of succinct, bullet points to say that these are the 3 things. We call it a 3-dimensional story. The 3-dimensional story means that you are looking at them from perspective, from the lenses that are balanced. You're not just looking at them and just saying they are loud. Somebody might say millennials are very loud. That is not a complete story of millennials. That's not nice. You need to look at them from like turn that story around a bit and say, what again are they good at? They're racial justice conscious. That's good. I'm going to put that down. And they're not all lazy. They are brilliant, because it's a misconception that people say, oh, they're just lazy. No, they're not. They're brilliant. They have, you know, a mind for the future. So I do not know what your customers are or your consumers, the people you're trying to market to. I want you to try to do a mood board. We're going to create a word cloud. I want you to present your own mood board to us by using 3-dimensional stories. You know, give me 3 points about your consumer that you think represent them at the moment. What is a 3-dimensional story of your client? Your client is not just a mother. She's also a lover. A lot of time we make mistake, we cast our client in this 1-dimensional story. And that's what you saw in some of the stories that we looked at earlier from Amazon, from those products. They were selling 1-dimensional stories of their clients. And sometimes it kind of confuses us when we think that, you know, everybody who lives in Baltimore, they're kind of a gang aware, or they're kind of violent aware. That is possible, but, you know, that may not be everybody's story. So what is the mood board for Baltimore, for instance? Baltimore is charming, no matter what people think. I mean, we are, and, you know, yeah, but we also have some other things that maybe not too nice. So it's always good to balance it, to look at the positive, not too positive, and put all of that together into your mood board.
I came up with kind of three terms for who our audience was or is. The 3 terms I came up with were community focused, they care about quality, and they're generally an educated audience. Those are three characteristics I thought of.
Community focus, they care about quality, and the last one was?
But it's a pretty highly educated audience.
Yeah, highly educated. I like that. That's 3-dimensional. They're not just community focused. They're highly educated and they're quality focused, and that's really powerful. Does anybody else want to share before we move on from there? Then we can.
This is a coast. I came up with 4. I have empowered. They are protectors, fearless, and I also put exposed wounds because of the feedback I'm getting from people with the climate that's going on today.
Oh, wow. That's insightful. Did you say exposed wounds?
Yes.
I like that because that brings in a humanness factor to your mood board, which is something that I was looking at that was lacking in Andy's mood board. Your clients seem to be all polished all through. They're very all nice. Everything is fantastic. Like, it cannot be always fantastic. Like, if you look at my example, we had the millennials that were also loud. Loud is not always necessarily nice, but sometimes it can be. That's why I like Echo's mood board. There is an element of vulnerability in a mood board. That actually opens us up to some form of storytelling when we want to tell stories. And that's why I would go with Echo's mood board. This community is empowered. You know, they're fearless. You know, I really like that, you know. Did you say they're protected? Is that what you said, Echoes?
Yes, they're protectors, not just protective, but they're protectors.
They're protectors. I like that. I like that persona. And then they're exposed to wound. Yeah. So yeah, that's how to create a mood board. You know, sometimes this can take 2 months, 3 months to get done with your team. Don't start creating your marketing story until you have your first mood board, storyboard together. This takes time. This is a workshop on its own. I'm not promising you that that's what we're going to do today, but that is a whole workshop on its own, where you create the persona for your clients to look at their journey, and you do some journey mapping, and you agree. But it is also based on data. We don't just make it up. It's based on data, secondary data, things that we read about them, collect about them. So when I'm working with a client, I tell the client, we need to look at what these consumers are looking at. We need to look at their TV stations. We need to look at their magazines. That will give us clues to who they are. And we need to do some interviews. So if you are hiring a research company, it's always good to let them know what you want from them. So the second storyboard, so we've moved from first storyboard to second storyboard because of time. We need to, so this consumer or this client of yours, they have what we call a dramatic need. It's not just a need. Look at the underlying word is dramatic. It's dramatic. It's not just a need. It's dramatic because it's a need that matters the most to them. It's what wakes them up at night when they are sleeping. It's what makes them uncomfortable. It's what makes them want to become something, wants to fight. You know, that dramatic need can make or mar your branding. For instance, the Apple commercial that I play, the dramatic need was the people don't want to be controlled. Windows was metaphorized as that branding that like to control people, and Apple made Windows to look like a big brother, you know. So Apple came up with a new branding to say, in 1984 will not be like 1984 because Americans will not want to be controlled by any big brother anymore. That's why they have the X, you know, to shatter the windows. So what is the dramatic need of your clients? Is it the need, you know, to take charge of their life? Is it the need, you know, to live in a better place? Is it the need to be seen as a better mother? I don't know what it is. So for this millennia, I think their dramatic need is justice. That's why I put this there. For them, it's just one word. I'm looking for one word. So let's try to use the storyboard tool. If you can go to the slider now, you can enter it into it. What is the dramatic need of your clients for storyboard tool? All right, let's see if we have something. Oh, wow. Make Baltimore better. It's always important to find it. If you look at movies, there is no interesting movie without a dramatic need. Someone is always looking for something. It is the reason why we watch a whole movie from the beginning to the end. We want to see if the character finds that thing they're looking for, whether they want to discover a long-haired secret of their family, whether they want to know who killed their mother, whether they want to find it's kind of a self-love, whether they want to free themselves from a marriage. There's always something. Without a conflict, that thing that somebody is looking for, there is no story. So in every branding, I'm always asking, where is the story here? I can't see the story. And that's what's missing in most of our storytelling. People just want to say, I'm selling, you know, strawberries and it's beautiful. That's not a story. That's just a product story. A brand story is going to have a dramatic need. It's going to say that, you know, and that's why I like that. I think it's a course that said the beep for the kids. You know, they talk about the kids drooling. They were drooling. And so the parents wanted freedom from that drooling from their kids. So that is the dramatic need of the parent. They want to be free from that, you know, stuff. And so they're not just selling beeps, they're selling freedom for parents, you know, who don't like their kids to just drool all over their shirts. So it's important, even if you are selling water, your water, people have a dramatic need for that water and you must find it. And I give you a good example. When I was working on Coca-Cola, I remember that there was a time we were trying to find a dramatic need for Coca-Cola, much more than just drinking. And one of the things we came up with after a lot of conversation and research was that Coca-Cola was just a need. People wanted to connect with other people. They wanted to have a reason to celebrate. And so the dramatic need was not just because they needed to drink it, it was more of they needed a prop when they gather, like during Christmas, like during Thanksgiving, they needed something to be in the middle. Because a lot of time, I don't know how many of you have experienced it, you go out with a friend and you don't know how to start a conversation. So Coca-Cola was the conversation starter. You know, and I'm talking about in the 90s when we were doing this campaign. So things have changed. And so we were saying, get a Coke, you know, and be able to create friendship. I don't know if you saw the campaign of, you know, creating friendship that's happened in the 90s with Coca-Cola. That was where it came from. We were trying to say that Coca-Cola built better friendship because people needed to create friends. Like you go to a bar, you want to talk to someone you have not spoken to before. So Coca-Cola is that thing, the bottle. You hold the bottle and then you just hold it on and then try to start a conversation. So it's a conversation starter, so it's not just a drink. All right. Let's go to the storyboard number 3, and we're almost done. Storyboard number 3 is the X in the middle. Remember, I told you that 12x 3 4 is a formula. So we started with number 1, the mood board. Yeah, that's what we did. We did the mood board. And the second storyboard, that's the dramatic name. So now we are in the third storyboard. The third storyboard is called the X storyboard, which is who is the villain, who is standing or what is standing in the way of their needs. So people want freedom. Look at what we have here. People want freedom. People want to make Baltimore better. People want to love their family. People want healing. So what is standing in the way of healing? What is standing in the way of people loving their family? What is standing in the way of freedom? It could be an institution. It could be a government. It could be something. I don't know what it is. You need to find, every good story must find a villain. If there is no antagonist in a movie, the movie is going to be boring. Just imagine somebody just talking to themselves. They're not fighting anything, and there's nothing they're fighting. Even if you have to fight something from within yourself, there must be a villain for you to have a beautiful story. Who are you fighting? We know who you're fighting for. You're fighting for the empower, the protectors, the fearless, you're fighting for this amazing group of people that are highly educated, according to Andy. Those are your clients. But what are you fighting against? What is their enemy? Who is their enemy? It could be a thing, it could be a person, it could be an institution. There must be one thing that you're fighting against, and it's important to define it. For Apple, it was Big Brother. They were fighting against Big Brother, the institutionalization of computers. If you remember, computers used to be something that you had to go to one house to go and get in. There usually was a whole house that was built for computers. Those days, it wasn't, people didn't have personal computer like we have now. So Apple wanted to change that. So they cast the Big Brother villain, like Windows was for that kind of control room. They wanted to fight that by creating personal computer. Who are you fighting against? Let's go. What is one thing standing between you and your dramatic needs? Amazon. I like that. Remember that for Pepsi, Coca-Cola was their villain for many years, and even till now. If you look at most Pepsi commercials, they try to fight Coca-Cola. They try to do something, You have to fight something. And I always use this example. I know people don't like politics, but I use the examples in my conferences. Like, the best storyteller of our time is Donald Trump. He's one of the best storyteller. I mean, we don't like him. Some of us don't. I mean, but listen, this guy tells the best story because he knows how to cast a villain. A crooked Hillary. It's not just Hillary, but crooked. That is how to cast a villain. So somebody who wrote Amazon, you need to put an adjective before Amazon. How do you describe Amazon? Evil Amazon? Yeah, that is better. You need to, your villain has to have an adjective to it. Something that will make us angry, something that will make us want to fight. Mexico is coming to take your job. There's so many things that this man had said that has kind of riled up his base. And it's important that we know that storytellers always have a villain, somebody that we need to fight. So who is your boogeyman? Who is the person that we need to fight? Who are you fighting? Global capitalism, I love that. Love that. So what are we fighting? Who are we fighting? Yeah, you have to have something you're fighting. A lot of branding is very boring because there's nothing they are fighting. You're fighting something. It could be an institution. It could be a cultural thing. It could be something that is, it doesn't have to be a person. It could be a concept, there must be something. Elizabeth Warren was always fighting the corporates, the corporates, the corporate, the greedy corporates, corporations and all of that. Bernie Sanders is always fighting, all of this, institutions, social justice, all of that. There must be something you are fighting. That's what makes these people amazing storytellers. If you don't have something you are fighting, forget it. You have no story. All right. This is where we cue in the music and bring in the fairy godmother. This is where you have your intervention story. So now you know who you are fighting. What are you doing as a brand? So what are you intervening with? How do you take on greedy Amazon? Do you just say, poof, Amazon disappear, and Amazon just disappears? No, there must be something you're doing. What is your strategy? What is a strategy to fight Amazon? What is a strategy to fight global capitalism? This is where you tell your company story. This is the first opportunity you will have as a product or as a service to tell why you are in the life of your consumer. So this is your intervention story. We are here to give our consumer alternatives from Amazon so that they will not be, I don't know, they will not be taken advantage of. What is your intervention story? We're giving our consumer another way to ship their products so that they will not be at the whims and caprices of Amazon. There must be an intervention story why you exist, because that is that one-liner that you're going to be using at the business meetings when people say, "Oh, what do you do?" "Oh, we're here to make sure that our consumers are not always, victims of Amazon." Boom. That's all. That's your one-minute story in the elevator. Already you have an antagonist in that story. You have why you exist in the life of the consumer, and you know the kind of people you're talking to. So that's powerful one-liner story. So what is your intervention story? How do you appear in the scene? Do you come in, with some cape? Do you come in like a Superman, like a Spider-Man? This is where your branding begins. This is what determines the name you even call yourself. I tell people, a lot of people come to me, they want to start branding their businesses. They start with, I want a logo. No, you need to start from all this process we just went through before you get to your logo creation. Because when you know who you're fighting, you know what you're fighting against, you know what you stand for, then you can know what your name will be. Then you can know how you're branding, the colors, the font types, how it's going to look like. Because that is when you can have a more compelling story to tell. But I see a lot of people start the other way around. They just wake up in the morning and they say, my brand is going to be called Kenny, because that's what my father called me. No, you should look at the purpose towards storytelling for branding. It's very important. So let's see, how do you help your brand? How do you help your consumers? Tell us. All right, let's see what we have. Show them a local alternative. I love that. So the question is, who is them? So you need to define them, because them has been defined by the storyboard number 1. So you may want to pick 1 or 2 lines from that to say, our highly educated or our community focused consumer, we want to show them a local alternative to Amazon, to greedy Amazon. So that way you have a complete 3-dimensional story that you're telling. So we now have the last story. The last storyboard, and that's where it all ends. So this is where we talk about the purpose. Like, so that what? So you want to give them education and outreach, of course. You want to give them a local alternative to Amazon, Andy. So the last storyboard is asking you the question, why? Why is that important? Because da. And this is where you go back to what? You go back to storyboard number 2. Storyboard number 2 is the dramatic need of your client. So you want to say, you're here, you're giving them a local alternative to Amazon so that they can have freedom, so that they can have, so you're not creating a new story, you already have it in your storyboard number 2. So you're going back to look at your storyboard number 2 and picking what you already have there, and then say, we're giving them local alternative to Amazon so that what? So that they can, so let's see if we can get some of the stuff we have for number 2. So somebody say healing, somebody say freedom, somebody say so they can make Baltimore better. So I'm just making this up. So I'm not saying this came from one person. So I would say that, my last storyboard would be, we're giving them a local alternative to Amazon so they can make Baltimore a better place, or so they can make Baltimore businesses better. Now that gives you a reason to exist. That gives you what you call your mission statement. That gives you something why anybody wants to believe or want to buy into your company. And this is the most important story that you tell or build generational wealth. Yeah. This is a story that you tell to your staff, because a lot of time we have new staff that we hire and they do not know why we are selling cookies. We want to tell them that we are doing this so that what? We can build generational wealth. Purpose, that's why we call it purpose storytelling. Purpose is more powerful when people buy into purpose. It inspires people. It inspires them to be a part of something bigger than cookies. You know, it can be cookies, but the cookies is actually helping to build generational wealth. Oh yeah, I want to be part of that. I want to work for you. I want to be your staff. You know, so I think that at the end of this this conference or this workshop or what we call it, we're able to tell stories that are more compelling, and we're able to inspire our, you know, our staff and our stakeholders. So let's see what we have here. Why is this intervention important? Somebody already answered that in the other board, but yeah, if you can put that in there, that'll be good. So I'm going to play you this story, and I hope that this story will kind of summarize most of the stuff that I've been saying, because I'm not really good at talking about it, but I'm good at showing it. Some years ago, many years ago, Dove was struggling with their marketing. They wanted to be more than a soap. They were selling soap, and there were so many soaps in the market, and they didn't know what to do. So they turned to storytelling. They wanted to, so they hired storytelling companies, and they were able to build this same process that we went through. And they found what they really are looking for. What is that one thing? What is the dramatic need for their consumer, which is self-esteem. Self-esteem became the thing that was important. And so they've been using that all along. If you look at Dove campaigns today, they've stopped using big models. They're now beginning to use real human beings to showcase that we are all beautiful, no matter what we look like, that everyone is beautiful. And that has been Dove's story. Now remember, it is still a soap. It's still the same product. Nothing has changed in the formula. But the story changed, and it's become even better. They're able to have a higher market share. Again, it's not just about the wallet, it's about the mind. They're able to capture people's mind, and they get there. So think about it as you begin to do your marketing. Whatever you do, think about it, that it's important that you reach people's mind. So I go back to this formula, and that is where I'm going to hint. I'm going to remind you that when you are building attention, you want to look at your storyboard number 2. And I don't know if you remember what your storyboard number 2 is. That you want people to, you want to show their need. You want to show them, you know, why they need this product. That's how you get people's attention. You want to show why they need this. This is important. This is why you don't sleep at night. Your baby is drooling. They're drooling. You don't like them drooling when you go to family meetings. So you want them to see that. That should be the headline. That should be the most important thing. That's how you get attention. And also the X is what? X is what? Is the enemy that you created, the greedy Amazon. So as you're on the TV advertising, on the social media, you want to be talking about this enemy. You want to be talking about greedy, how greedy. You want to write a whole op-ed, you know, about why Amazon is greedy. You want to do all of that. That's how you get attention. That's how you get people to look your way, because people are looking for alternatives to Amazon. And so when you create these stories, you get people's attention, people become aware. And then you begin to go to where they process you. When they process you, you want to look at storyboard number 1 and storyboard number 4. Storyboard number 1 is the mood board. People want to see how you are relevant in their life. Remember, you said these people are empowered, they are protectors, they are fearless. They want to see if you fit into their culture. They want to see if you are part of their life, if you fit into who they already are. So when they are processing your brand, you want to tell stories that reinforce, stories that reinforce who they are already. It's all about the people. It's not about you. And so otherwise, your brand will stay in the foggiest place. And the last part, your storyboard number 3, is where people begin to put you in their consideration set. And your storyboard number 3 is your story of purpose. It's very important that people know why they should stay with you. And that, gentle persons, and that's how I'm going to end this. Remember that it's important that you tell a story that is cohesive, from grabbing attention to making people have you in their consideration set. So always ask yourself, where is my marketing right now? Are we still at the attention place? If we are, then we need to be looking at stories that reinforce who the consumers are. We need to that reinforce what the problem is, the dramatic needs, and who the villain is, the antagonist, who we are fighting, and invite them to fight this with you. Together, we can fight this, and then move on until you get to consideration. I wish you all the best. I hope that you have questions for me. Thank you.
Kehinde, can you see the chat box? We just got a message from Akos that I think is worth addressing.
Yeah, it is more like, doesn't sound like a question to me. It sounds like somebody who really knows what they're doing now. Because this is a very powerful statement. Creating the why, reconnecting culture to violent, non-violent protest. It is a powerful way of telling a story. And I know a few fashion brands that have done that, that connected their brand to something more human, something bigger than just clothing. So if that is your strategy, I would say that you must have hit some gold there, by connecting your brand to a non-violent protest and using your brand as a form of expression for protest, a non-violent. If I got that right, I would support that.
No, you have it perfect. Thank you.
Oh, okay. I want to be sure that we're talking. Yeah, that is really powerful. I don't know how you came about that, but if that is your strategy, you will be differentiated in the market. And so you're not just selling a piece of cloth, you are selling a story. You're selling something cultural that is different from every other person. And then people know why they are buying this. They are buying this as a form of protest. And so that's it. I mean, I cannot teach you that. You got this. That's amazing.
I have a question for Akos, actually. And Akos, how do you know that people are understanding? What gives you that that kind of feedback loop with your customers?
Well, that's a good question. Initially, we weren't, how we know that people are understanding it is the feedback that we're getting. Like, we weren't surveying people, asking them, like, how does it make you feel, etc. But the feedback, especially in light of, the recent, incidences that have been happening, people have been telling us that, when we wear your clothing, it makes us feel like this. When we wear your face mask to work with the bright African fabric, and somebody might work in a law firm, and they're saying everybody is just wearing solids, and they'll come there with their bright African fabric face mask or attire, and people will be like, ooh. But not only that, we also tell the people the meaning behind the fabrics, because all the fabrics have names. So they say, oh, that way anybody can wear it, regardless of, race, whatever. as long as you have the knowledge and you respect and embrace the product, then you can wear it with that pride and, you know, express the dignity of what you're wearing.
That's very powerful. Yeah, people buy stories, they don't buy products. I always say that to my client. People buy stories, they don't buy products. Apple is selling very expensive. I mean, Apple is a very expensive product, but they're still leading the market because people are buying into the stories, not into the products. They are buying into the you know, the look of Apple. Having an Apple product is a status symbol for many people. It's not really that they care about, you know, where it's coming from. They care about how they look, you know, in the community where they are. So it's important that your brand can elicit something more emotional than just something more functional. And even if you are selling underwear, it's important that we're able to put some stories into it.
We're just now trying to focus more on that aspect and relay it to people, as opposed to how it has come about, which is kind of accidentally, even though that has always been how we have promoted it. But people, you know, would buy the fabric, the clothing, because it was fashionable, it was trendy. Now we're trying to focus on the other part, the empowering and how it makes you feel.
Yeah. Yeah.
I only got quiet myself because I'm sitting over here sketching out storyboarding the commercial that we're going to make based on this.
I wish you all the best with that. Yeah, this workshop, where I mean, all the places I've had it, it's created so many amazing brands stories, because people are able to look at their brands differently, and that's why I like that we're just very few. It's not the kind of workshop you do with too many people. It's supposed to be a one-on-one thing. We're supposed to spend more time on each storyboard, like spend a whole, you know, a whole workshop really doing a storyboard. We rush through it, and I appreciate that we're doing this because of time. But this time, you know, it's good to slow down and be able to look at one storyboard after the other. And sometimes one storyboard alone can take you a whole month, because you need to gather information. You don't know the consumers too well. You can't sit down in our Zoom room or in our go-to-meeting room and just decide that this is who we are talking to. I mean, that's rather, you know, sometimes we already have ideas, but we need to kind of extrapolate data and look at what's coming in, who we're talking to, and be able to like triangulate all of this data to be able to say, oh, this is where they are, this is who they are. Coca-Cola does this every other year. We used to go to Coca-Cola campus where we all just look at consumers again, and that's why they review their stories. It's not the same story. So stories are not static. Stories keep changing, and that's why I wanted to tell our coach, you know, even why your story is the central story of non-protest, non-violent protest. As the years go by, you need to begin to update that so that it can be relevant, because a lot of brands are not relevant today because they keep telling the same story that is not looking at the storyboard number one. Remember, it starts from number one, where the consumers are. It's called the mood board. Mood changes. Mood changes. So today, we're all talking about security, public health. Tomorrow, maybe we're talking about prosperity. I don't know. But mood is going to change. But your story, your core story can change. Your why you exist may not change. But you know how you intervene would almost likely change, because you know things are going to change. The way people purchase stuff, the way people do stuff. I look at Trader Joe, for instance. Trader Joe does not do home delivery. They do not do. You don't buy Trader Joe online. You know, you have to go to the store. The branding is all about the authenticity of you coming into the space to actually purchase. You know, but I'm looking at where we are with this pandemic, and I'm beginning to ask myself, are the people in the branding at Trader Joe, are they beginning to look at their mood board to see if they need to change the mood board to reflect the times that we're in? Many people's story are stuck in the past, you know, and you know, unfortunately. Something has to be done about that.
Well, unless there's any other questions, Kehinde, I want to thank you very much for giving that stellar presentation today. I think it is just as relevant as the first time I heard it, and personally felt like it brought up new ideas for me on the second time through. So really appreciate it.